Rocket League is a pretty simple concept at heart. Rocket-powered cars playing soccer, or depending on where you're from, football. As awesome as that sounds, anyone who's picked up a controller and played Rocket League can tell you there's something special about how it all comes together. It's one of the few games that's hooked sports fans and the uninitiated alike. It appeals to hardcore online competitors and casual split-screen players who just want to have a good time on just about any platform. And now, surprise! Rocket League is coming to the Nintendo Switch. This is the secret origin of Rocket League. Rocket League's success is the stuff video game legends are made of. Psyonix, a small developer with talent, resolve, and a dream, hit it big through hard work, perseverance, and a bit of trial and error. The company began by doing contract work for AAA development studios, quietly working on an acrobatic car pet project in the background over several years. Their first foray into the vehicular soccer space was supersonic acrobatic rocket-powered battle cars on the PlayStation 3, which laid the groundwork for a sequel that we know as Rocket League. The simplicity of Rocket League's core idea can be a little deceptive, since it's descended from a few decades of out-of-the-box thinking in many different areas. Competitive video games are nothing new. Gamers have been trying to get a digital ball past an opponent since Pong. Even as early as the Atari 2600, International Soccer brought the beautiful game home in pixel form. Alright, well, it's not exactly FIFA 18, but you gotta start somewhere. Many mainstream sports titles have aimed for realism through the years, but Rocket League has more in common with the weirder side of sports gaming. These are the games that take full advantage of the fact that in video games, anything goes. One of the early hits of this kind was 1988's Cyberball. This spin on American football not only replaces the player with robots, it replaces the ball with an energy sphere that is slowly going critical as play progresses. Fail to cross midfield or score a touchdown in time, and the ball will explode, destroying your quarterback and, more importantly, turning possession over to the other team. That same year gave us Speedball, initially on the Amiga and later on just about every other platform, a blend of hockey, soccer, and handball, plus some extra violent twists, such as the fact that you score the same points for injuring another player as you do for actually scoring a goal. Speedball was one of the founding titles of the violent future sports subgenre, and its sequel, Speedball 2 Brutal Deluxe, became a hit 2 years later, expanding the size of the teams and greatly improving the graphics. Speedball 2 has been ported and upgraded regularly through the years, most recently in the form of an HD version released on Steam in 2013. Many NES owners have fond memories of Cyber Stadium Series Base Wars from 1991, which applies the robot player concept to baseball. Any close play in Base Wars results in a mini fighting game breaking out, and players can carry lightsabers and laser guns as standard equipment. Earning money from games lets you customize and upgrade your robots, allowing for a little personalized strategy. Sadly, no hats are available for the robots, an aspect Rocket League greatly improved upon later on. You might expect this to be where we mention Arch Rivals, the 1989 arcade hit that brought open violence to the basketball court. However, more in keeping with Rocket League's aesthetic is the more fun to say than it is to play Bill Laimbeer's Combat Basketball, a 1991 SNES release. Laimbeer was a Detroit Pistons player who was infamous for his, shall we say, very physical playstyle. In this futuristic basket brawler, he becomes the commissioner of a basketball league and does away with all the rules so the game can be played the way he wants to play it, with fists and explosive weaponry. It was not well regarded, even in its day, but is remembered more for its setting and no-holds-barred premise, a philosophy Rocket League adheres to today, but with less punching. The king of the unorthodox sports games of yesteryear is unquestionably the Mutant League sports series. Mutant League Football was released in 1993, with Mutant League Hockey following 1 year later. Set in a post-nuclear world in which mutants play professional sports amid toxic waste and landmines, these surprisingly solid sports titles shake things up, with player deaths on field and the ability to bribe the ref to call fake penalties on your opponent. They were even popular enough to spawn an animated TV series, which makes you wonder why EA hasn't made another one in the last 23 years. Maybe it's because the strange, futuristic, violent sports trend that Mutant League was part of gave way to the extreme action sports games of the late 90s and early 2000s in the wake of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. But 2002 did give us the Xbox exclusive Death Row, featuring a no-holds-barred take on rugby, crossed with basketball and a little bit of hockey, called Blitz. 2 teams of 4 compete to get a flying disc through hoops on either side of an indoor court, with open violence allowed and no pauses between scores. Complex controls, a distinct similarity to the previously mentioned Speedball, and a steep learning curve resulted in mixed reviews, but Death Row is often cited as a hidden gem. IGN named it the best game nobody played of 2002. Rocket League's competitive hook is more than just balls and goals, of course. If it's possible to be better than someone else at something, human beings will inevitably compete to be the best. In Rocket League, players battle to pull off the best tricks and fancy shots as much as they compete for the highest score, an example of the emergent gameplay that arises from the physics in the game and the freedom they allow players. Perhaps the classic lesson in competition, game physics, and the betrayal that results from the combination of the two is Joust, a 1982 arcade game. Ostensibly, the two-player mode encourages players to work together to defeat the waves of ostrich-mounted baddies. When two bird mounts clash, the higher one wins, and the lower one loses its rider. The twist here is that the human players can kill each other in the same way, and the physics of the only barely flight-capable birds makes maneuvering a tricky proposition. As far as we can determine, every co-op game of Joust ever played has turned into a hard-fought war of attrition, with both players actively ignoring the enemies in favor of exacting revenge on their so-called partner. Less violent, but no less contentious, is the two-player mode of Marble Madness, another game in which the primary foes are gravity and inertia. Each player controls a marble, attempting to race through an obstacle course and reach the goal first. The objective tends to last until one player slams into the other and knocks them to their doom, after which the game's focus shifts to annihilating one another. Maybe less violent isn't strictly true, now that we think about it. When it comes to vehicle physics with friends, perhaps no game pre-Rocket League stands out more than San Francisco Rush 2049, particularly the Nintendo 64 version from 2000. The stunt arenas in the game are probably responsible for more than a few failed final exams in the early 21st century. Players could spend hours tearing around the arenas, launching off every slanted object in sight and using extendable wings on their car to maximize their airtime. It was a game mode very like this one that was the genesis for Psyonix's early acrobatic car project. Despite the wealth of creativity and talent behind all of these games, few reached the stratospheric heights of Rocket League. Against all odds, Psyonix managed to make an unlikely little game one of the breakout hits of the last decade. What's the secret? For the answer, we went to Danny O'Dwyer, the man behind the exceptional documentary, The Story of Rocket League.
Yes! Video games! I think the thing that separates Rocket League from other novelty sports games, it feels more like I'm controlling a ball than actually kind of a lot of bona fide sports games, like games like FIFA and PES. In a way, Rocket League is more like a sports game than most sports games, and I think that's the reason why people sort of attach to it, because they got a lot of folks who are just into multiplayer competitive games, but a lot of my friends who used to play a lot of FIFA and PES, including myself, now just kind of play Rocket League.
For a much deeper dive into the making of Rocket League, the long road Psyonix traveled, and the definitive history of the game, be sure to check out NoClip's The Story of Rocket League. And for more secret origins, check out the secret origin of Minecraft and GTA.